I never imagined that the day I proudly handed him his medical degree would also be the day he handed me my heartache. For 6 years, I had poured every ounce of my energy, every cent I could spare, and every ounce of faith into his dream. I had worked extra shifts, skipped vacations, and even sacrificed my own small pleasures so that he could focus on his studies. And now, as he stood in his crisp graduation gown, his smile radiant and triumphant, my heart should have soared with pride. But instead it cracked into 1,000 jagged pieces. "Your simplicity disgusts me," he said, his words cutting through me like a scalpel. "You are no longer worthy of me." I froze. My hands trembled as I realized he wasn't joking. The man I had loved, the man I had sacrificed for, was declaring that all I had done, all I had endured, all the years I had given to his dream meant nothing. I wanted to scream, to beg, to remind him that I had been his rock, his support, his everything, but the words caught in my throat. Our marriage had not been perfect, what marriage is, but I had never imagined it would end like this. The early days were beautiful. He was ambitious, yes, but he had a warmth that made me feel safe, a brilliance that made me proud to call him mine. We dreamed together, laughed together, fought together, and through it all, I had stood steadfastly by his side as he chased a dream that was bigger than both of us. But somewhere along the way, the dream consumed him. The late night study sessions turned into nights out with colleagues. The shared bills became mine alone to carry, and the man who once whispered "thank you" with love and tenderness began to look at me with an unfamiliar coldness. I noticed it, yes, but I blamed myself, thinking perhaps I had failed to inspire him. Perhaps I had become too ordinary, too predictable. And yet, I never imagined it would lead to this. Betrayal dressed as ambition. When he finally asked for a divorce, I felt as though the ground had vanished beneath my feet. "I can't be tied down to someone who doesn't grow with me," he said, his voice clinical, detached, as if he were discussing a failed project rather than the woman who had stood by him through sleepless nights and financial struggle. He didn't see the tears in my eyes. He didn't see the months I had gone without proper food so he could buy textbooks. He didn't see the nights I had rocked him back to sleep when exhaustion and anxiety crippled him. In the days that followed, I wandered through the house we had shared, touching the walls and shelves, each object a memory, each corner a fragment of a life I had believed in. Friends tried to comfort me, but words felt hollow. I was drowning in disbelief and betrayal, yet somewhere deep inside, a tiny spark of resolve began to glow. I realized that I had allowed myself to define my worth through his approval, through his ambitions, through his vision of me. But I was more than that. I had to be. I began to rebuild my life slowly, painfully. I reconnected with old passions I had neglected: painting, writing, volunteering. I found work that challenged me and reminded me that I was capable, intelligent, and resilient. Each day, I reminded myself that my value was not determined by someone else's selfishness. Months later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that he was thriving in his career, celebrated and respected. But something about him seemed emptier, hollow, even to those around him. Success had come at a price, and though I felt a fleeting pang of sadness, I also felt liberation. I had survived the storm that could have broken me, because I discovered that my strength was not in his acceptance, but in my own belief in myself. One quiet evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I realized I was finally free, not just from a marriage that no longer served me, but from the idea that my worth was tied to anyone else. I had loved deeply, I had sacrificed, and though it had hurt, it had also shaped me into a woman who could stand alone and still shine. I had been tested, and I had passed not because I avoided pain, but because I embraced my own resilience. I never saw him again after that, and in a strange way I was grateful. His rejection had been the catalyst for my awakening. I had learned that sometimes the people we love most can hurt us, but the power to heal, to rise, and to find joy again lies entirely within us. My simplicity, the very thing he mocked, became my strength. The quiet, steady, patient love I had for myself carried me forward, guiding me toward a life rich with purpose, freedom, and authentic happiness. In the end, I realized that letting go of someone who doesn't value you is not a loss. It's a rebirth. And as I watched the last rays of sunlight fade into night, I whispered a quiet thanks for the heartbreak, for the lessons, and for the strength to discover that I am more than enough, exactly as I